Everyone. Good evening. And welcome to the March 12th, 2019 meeting of the Board of Education. I'm Kate Bornensky. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Ms. Merritt is out of town. Her mother is very ill, and so she is helping care for her. At this time, I would like my fellow board members to introduce themselves, starting on my right.
My name is Doug Brooks. Thanks for coming out tonight.
Good evening. I'm Anupam Chugsidhu. Thanks for being here.
Good evening, Patrick Keogh. Great to see everybody here.
Patty McCoy, thank you for being here tonight.
Leonardo Savage, thank you for being here.
Hi, John Lazarowitz.
Okay. Dr. Vartanian Gibbs, would you like
Good
to?
evening and welcome, everyone. Thank you. And I would like to welcome our community and all of our fine teachers and other members from association who are here to support Chuck Pertelli with the Extra Miler Award. I am Liz Vartanian Gibbs, and I'd like to begin by introducing Monica Merritt's assistant, Elizabeth Adams, and thank her for taking the minutes at every board meeting so people are aware of the business that transpires during our board meeting. And of course, a big shout out to Charlie Jones, the man behind the scenes who captures these meetings on video so that those who cannot attend can view and listen to what takes place at the meeting. At this time, if the remaining members of Superintendent Merritt's core team can introduce themselves, we may begin with Mr. Brandon.
Good evening, Nick Brandon, Executive Director of Communications and Marketing. I too would like to welcome everyone here for Chuck Fest.
Hi, I'm Debbie Piaz. I'm the Chief Finance and Operations Officer. Good evening.
Good evening, Kurt Tiskwitz, Executive Director of Student Services. Thanks for coming tonight.
Hello, Mike Bender, Chief Academic Officer.
Good evening, Heather Colombo, President, P-CCS.
Okay. At this time, would everyone please stand for the pledge? And Chuck, would you like to lead us?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And the first item on our agenda is the adoption of the agenda, approval of the consent agenda. This is action item 190362. I'm looking for a motion on this, please.
Madam President, I move that we adopt the agenda, approval of the consent agenda, action item number 19-03-62.
Second.
Okay, motion was made by Member Sidhu and seconded by Member Brooks. Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none, Dr. Vartanian Gibbs, would you take us through the consent agenda, please?
Thank you. This evening, the consent agenda consists of the human resources transactions since our last time together. We have new hires. We have 3 new champions we're welcoming to our district for your consideration, as well as a leave and a resignation. Then we have the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting from the February 26, 2019 meeting.
All right.
Do we need to talk about the policies?
We could. Do you want to just go over the policies? Because there's
there's first readings of them. Just
yeah, we do have quite a few policies that we're doing a first reading on tonight. Liz, did you want to
Sure.
Also,
Also, part of the consent agenda, we have first read policies, 2060, non-discrimination and access to equal education opportunity, first read. 3130, assignment and transferred, first read. 3120.04, employment of substitutes, first read. 1662, anti-harassment, first read. 3362 through 4362, anti-harassment, first read. 5517, anti-harassment, first read. And we also had an out-of-country field trip.
Yep. Okay. All in favor? Please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Next up is,
So at this time, I would like to welcome 3 new teachers to Plymouth Canton Community Schools. So Catherine Covington, Holly Dede, and Karina Pacina. Could you come up, please? Come all the way up. You're in our family now. That's good. Right there. Great. So I'm going to start with Catherine Covington. So here is Catherine Covington. She is our new music teacher at Gallimore Elementary School and Hoban Elementary School. She has a bachelor's degree from the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, as well as 8 years of experience. So Catherine, welcome. It's very nice to have you. Then we have Holly Dede. Holly is coming to us from a bachelor's degree from Madonna College, elementary classroom teacher at Hossing Elementary School. Welcome. Next, we have Karina Pacina. She is coming to us from Central Michigan University with a bachelor's degree, and she will be a music teacher at Bentley Elementary School and Erickson Elementary School. So congratulations.
You come around and you shake. Welcome. Congratulations.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Great to have you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Welcome. My name's Candy at the end. Welcome to the district. Welcome to the district.
Thanks for being here.
Congratulations, Karina, right?
Yeah.
There you go.
Welcome.
Congratulations, Holly.
Congratulations.
Catherine. You're welcome. You're welcome.
Congratulations.
okay, so now we are at letter B, celebrating success, otherwise known as Chuck Fest. And tonight, our presenter will be Member Sidhu.
Good evening, everyone. P-CCS Board, the Celebrating Success this evening will honor Chuck Bertelli for his decades of service and involvement with Plymouth Canton Community Schools. Chuck is retiring this month. I know so many people are very sad and crying, probably. They're in denial. Closing a storied career in education that began in 1975 as a teacher at East Middle School's elementary wing. After 1 year at East, Chuck moved to Hossing Elementary for 10 great years in the classroom. And then he went on to teach for 5 years at Allen Elementary. And as we all know, once a dragon, always a dragon, right? You all seen this? In 1990, Chuck was elected PCEA president, representing PCCS teachers for 20 years from 1990 to 2010. At that point, he retired to become UNISERV director for the past 8 years, the position he will officially retire from on March 15th. Today, we would like to celebrate Chuck by welcoming a few guests to the podium to pay tribute. We will begin with his daughter and son-in-law, Danielle and Michael Gutelli. Could you please come up?
All right, here we go. Hi, I'm Danielle Gutelli.
And I'm Michael Gutelli.
And we are here to talk to you guys today about Dad. And I'm going to do this in 2 minutes or less, so I'll talk fast.
At least we'll
try. So ever since I can remember, Dad has been beyond incredibly passionate about everything that he puts his heart out to do. And that definitely includes answering phone calls at any and every time that his phone rings. So we were talking about this, my mom and I, earlier, about how we cannot remember a meal growing up where Dad didn't answer the phone during the middle of the meal, just to make sure that he was helping somebody in their time of need.
And since I've known Chuck since day one, he's, as I'm sure he's done with all of you, treated you like family. He welcomed me with open arms as I was his own son, and now I'm blessed to be his son.
Other things that maybe you know or don't know about Dad is that legit everybody knows him. And like, I'm not even trying to be like, oh, like, we jokingly, we call him the mayor of Canton. Yes, we know that Canton doesn't have a mayor, but Dad fills that role.
I gave him the title, and there should be, and it should be him.
And so this goes back from me being in high school and kids saying, hey, I saw your dad in the hall today. And I'm like, cool. I saw him this morning before I left. To us going on vacation, and we got married in Riviera Maya, Mexico. Guess what? Chuck knew somebody at our wedding that wasn't invited. Oh, we went to Disney World. He found somebody there too.
I think it's one of the reasons Chuck and I have such a tight bond is that happens to me too. We travel frequently together as a family, often Chicago, where Danielle and I met, and we resided for 12 years. On one of our drives back, we stopped for gas, and I get beeped at. It's somebody at the gas station that I knew. Kind of random, but that's what happens to us.
So we are just here to tell you all, thank you so much for honoring Dad tonight. He truly, truly deserves it. He is beyond passionate and has put his heart and soul into this district. If you haven't seen these pictures, they're pretty rad too. And I can promise you that although he's leaving you guys, his next adventure is going to be pretty cool.
Yep.
So, thank you.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Next, we would like to invite Chuck's wife, Rose Bertelli. Could you please come up?
Hi, I feel like it's been a long time since I've been in front of the school board talking, but I've done it several times before. As you can well imagine, this is a very emotional week at the Bertelli House. 44 years is a really, really long time. And I thought about all of the different stories that I could tell and the secrets that I could share, which of course I won't. But I have one very, very heartwarming story that I want to share with you that I'm pretty sure a lot of the people in this room have not heard before. For those of you that know us, every year while Chuck was president for 20 years, we had a very, very large Christmas party that included everybody that was involved in executive board and, of course, all of the board members and the superintendent and lots of administrators. And it was always a great time. Well, one year at one of our parties, Chuck was talking to one of our second grade teachers who taught at Byrd. And he asked how the year was going. And he said, his name is J.J. Lloyd. And he said, you know, I'm having a good year, but I have this little second grader, and she speaks Spanish. And I'm having a really, really difficult time communicating with her. Well, Chuck said, you know, I have a teacher here that teaches at West, and her name is Holly, and she just so happens to teach Spanish. Let me introduce you to her. So, of course, he did, and they met, and they worked out a plan so that Holly could spend time with this little girl, and, you know, things got way better for this student and for JJ, of course, because now he could communicate with his student. Well, in the meantime, these two people fell in love and got married and had 3 beautiful children, who one of them is here tonight, Auden, and all 3 of their children also go to Plymouth Canton schools. And, you know, that just always touched my heart. I just want you to know, and I want to thank you, that Chuck and I, because of course I taught in this district for 34 years, it's just that I've already retired, we've always been proud to say that we were Plymouth Canton teachers and that we worked here. This is a great, great district and just a wonderful community to be part of. So thank you so much. We will miss you as much as you miss him.
And to continue with the Chuck Fest, we would like to welcome former P-CCS teacher Sharon Belobradich to the podium. Could you please come up?
Congratulations, that's a hard name.
I helped her.
Thank you.
You helped her.
I sure did.
Yeah, where to start?
Then cast the hook.
Is that what I need? I have known and admired Chuck Pertelli for 44 years. I was secretary of the PCEA when he was hired. People knew I knew how to take shorthand, so they decided that I should have that job. And of course, no one else in their right mind wanted it anyway, so I was the one. Chuck was one of those young building representatives that first year in the district, not on tenure, like I had been in 1965. I didn't know who he was, but I quickly learned to spell Pertelli because he made most of the motions at each meeting. If it wasn't Chuck, it was his buddy, Al Du Bois. By the end of the first meeting in September, I knew both of them really well. In 1989, it became clear that there was going to be a change in the leadership of the association. So a couple of teachers went to Chuck and said, "You want to be president?" And at the same time, a couple of teachers came to me and said, "Would you like to be president?" So Chuck could have been really secretive about this and played games with me, but that's not Chuck. He called and he said, "What do you want to do?" We talked, we laughed, we tried to figure out what the job was going to be like. At the end of the conversation, he decided he was going to be president and I would be vice president. And that was an association that I had for 18 years. That summer, before we took over, we went to Sault Ste. Marie for training classes. And as we walked back and forth from the hotel to the convention center, you know how Chuck likes to exercise? 2 miles each way. We would talk and laugh about union activities and what was in store for us, because neither of us had ever been president, so we had no idea. I remember Chuck saying he was going to be full-time release president. He said, "My God, what am I going to do with my days?" And I said, "Well, you'll probably find out." Wasn't long. I have worked for and with many people in over 65 years in the workforce, and not one has ever earned my respect and admiration as has Chuck. We spent hours, very long hours, gearing up for negotiations, and there were nights that we sat around the bargaining table and side rooms all night. Then there were a couple of conferences we had to go to. Kansas City was the first. Do you remember I told you about walking back and forth at the Sioux? Well, it was 2 miles each way in Kansas City also, and it was hotter than you can imagine. So as we were flying, something went wrong with our plane and we had trouble getting there, and as we were going into the hotel, I said, "If there's anything wrong with our hotel accommodations, I'm going home. I'm not staying." We got to the hotel clerk and he said, "We have a problem with your rooms." However, it was an upgrade to a suite for each of us instead of a downgrade to the utility room. We felt that that was a positive thing. So Chuck rarely went anywhere without his family. Rose always went with us, and as the kids grew, they did too. But this one year in Kansas City, he was alone. He was looking pretty forlorn and lost, so I suggested he come window shopping with me. He said, "Okay, but don't tell Rose that I went shopping or I'm going to have to go with her all the time. Rose, that was one of my secrets. I knew you would enjoy that. When we were at, this is the thing that I admired about Chuck. When we were at the MEA or NEA conventions, Chuck was always on the floor, meaning he was never absent from a session. And they all started with caucus at 7 a.m. and sometimes went way beyond dinner. There were numerous districts in this area whose officers were not in attendance and not near as loyal to their membership as Chuck Pertelli. I can use 5 words to describe Chuck. Here we go. Honest, loyal, consistent, devoted, and reliable. It doesn't matter if it was in the classroom, at the bargaining table, in his dealings with friends, or with his family. Chuck is like that elephant. I think in Dr. Seuss's book, his name is Horton. I meant what I said what I meant. Chuck Pertelli is honest, loyal, consistent, devoted, and reliable. 100%.
And now to present a special award, we'd like to welcome Chuck's longtime colleagues, Frank Ruggiero and Tony Bruscato, to say a few words.
Good evening. We'll be brief. First of all, thank you, Rose, for asking me to speak tonight. It's a real honor to be here with you, Chuck, tonight. And I'll say this to the board. I've been fortunate to work for this district for a lot of years and blessed to be able to come back. And I will tell you that one of the things that's always struck me about Plymouth Canton, and I think it's about the reputation of the district, it's that I think the reason we're one of the best districts in the state, or the best district in the state, is because of the great relationship this board and our administration has with our teachers. And I believe that has a lot to do with Chuck Pertelli and the work you've done over the years. So thank you for that, my friend. Whoever follows you has giant shoes to fill. So with that, I have a little story to tell. It'll be quick. Tony, come on up here with me. Back in, I believe it was 2005, when the district was opening its last elementary school, Workman Elementary, we had just decided that Tom Workman was going to be honored to have the school named after him. And I distinctly remember a conversation that Tony was the reporter for the Observer and Eccentric at the time. The three of us, Chuck and I and Tony, were in my office, and we were talking about Tom Workman and how he deserved the honor. And if you know Chuck, he looked at me and he got that look on his face and he said, you know, when we're done here, all they're ever going to give us is a dumpster. There's 3 high schools, there's 3 Italians. We're each going to get a dumpster named after us. I didn't think I'd ever be worthy of that, but Chuck, tonight, we're going to make your dream come true. If you please come over. We can pass this around that everyone can see this, but I understand this is at Canton High School. Is this where it's
at Salem.
It's at Salem High School. This is we now have the Chuck Pertelli dumpster. And there it is for you, my friend. Congratulations. Thank you.
No, I will.
So
This is Chuck Fest down.
he's asking, when does the Chuck Fest end? I think it's going to go on for a little while longer.
It's not quite over yet.
Yes, exactly. It's not quite over. So on behalf of the Board of Education, I would like to present Chuck Pertelli with the Mary Beth Carroll Extra Miler Award. Chuck, would you like to say a few words?
Yeah. It took 44 years for me to stand here and have an honor, instead of telling you what the job you weren't doing and how you should do it and why I was right and you were wrong. With that, I thank you on behalf of the 1,060 people that aren't standing here, because they all deserve to be here. Thank you.
And lastly, we'd like to welcome Heather Colombo, the current PCEA president, to pay a tribute.
Okay. Well, first of all, this is supposed to go to you, too. Yep. Okay.
Another bag.
Yeah, another. But that's a special bag.
So I first met Chuck when he delivered my pink slip in 2003. Oh, yes, during my planning period. Thank you very much. He slid into my life just like he slid down the halls of Allen on his skates. Then I became a building representative for West. I was slowly getting more involved in the PCEA. Chuck was always there to answer a question, lend an ear, or solve a problem. Chuck encouraged me to run for my current president role, just like he encouraged his kids to run laps around the school. His persistence and his confidence in me made my decision much easier. Over the last 2 years, Chuck has been my chauffeur, my confidant, and support system, all while providing some comic relief. I would like to thank Rose for giving me these extra 7 months with Chuck. He was only supposed to be with me for a year. Then they have given me the extra boost I needed. He is one of a kind advocate for public education and P-CCS. I will forever be grateful to Chuck for all he has done for me and for everyone. His years of experience are irreplaceable. We wish you well in your new adventures, and we know you're such a classy guy, so we wanted to update your wardrobe a bit. So now your school socks can turn into retirement socks. So the first pair, you have handyman socks when you work with Michael and Danielle, and your beverage socks for your final toast from P-CCS. And to the board, you may now start working on which building we will name after Chuck. Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck, for your service. Now we'd like to invite Chuck and his family up to shake the board members' hands. Come on up.
Thanks, Chuck.
Congratulations. Thanks for your service.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Rose. Thanks for sharing them with us. Thanks, Danielle.
I'm sorry to introduce you. I'm so happy for you.
Oh, all right. That was lovely.
Congratulations.
That was lovely. Oh, what school?
Thanks for coming and supporting us.
You did a great job, Danielle.
Oh, yeah.
I see you.
Congratulations. Great job. Nobody's congratulations. A little plaque up behind them. Chuck Portelli's.
The Chuck Portelli section?
That's right.
Yeah. You could also put a plaque out in the front for Chuck's Gardens, too.
There you go.
You could have his name all over town, at the dumpster, at the gardens.
We'll have Nick work on that. Chuck Portelli. He has
So while they're taking a photo, I just want to reiterate our thanks to Chuck for his service to the district and to the PCEA. We are now at board committee reports, letter C. First up is the president's report. Chuck, I just wanted to let you know that that seat back there is always open for you.
Yeah. Put a plaque up.
Yeah, well, we need to put a little plaque on his seat. So a couple of things that I did in the past couple of weeks since we last met. One was I went to the Realtor Breakfast, which was, I think, the 4th annual. I think, yep. So that was interesting and nice to see a really good turnout, and nice to see all the administration there too. So thanks for putting that together. The Community Relations Department did that, but Also, I attended the parent forum at the park today, so that was interesting. Just I'm a parent there also, but as a board member, I always like to hear what is on parents' minds. And finally, I just wanted to just put this out there for our schools. It's March's Reading Month. If any school would like a board member to come read, please feel free to email us. We haven't had very many requests this year, so if you don't want us, that's fine too. But but we do like to come in and you know, see what the kids are up to and read a book. I'm gonna skip over the SPA committee until Member Sidhu comes back from the picture. So policy committee is up next. Member McCoy.
Thank you. So we have not had a meeting since our last meeting. Our next meeting is March 26th, so it's 2 weeks from today, 5:30. It is in the conference room downstairs. Everybody is welcome to attend. They're usually a lot of fun. And of course, because they're before the board meeting, we get out plenty of time for you to attend this meeting also.
I'm responsible. I am
Sorry about that. We're trying to get the...
Okay. I guess I'll go to Finance and Operations, Member Kehoe, and I think you're going to maybe designate that.
I am. So we had a meeting last Thursday, the 7th, and I was in Hawaii, and so I've got John, who's going to update us on the meeting and all the great questions that they asked. John and Doug were trained well to ask lots of questions at the Finance and Operation meeting.
Yeah, so hi, it's my first one I went to, the F&O committee. There was no public comments. The big thing was with the custodians were the salt on the floors and how they're spending more time cleaning up the salt because of the weather. The transportation, there was the transportation department was over talking about the contracts. They're having difficulty filling the spots because with the pay and all that. And the next thing was the bonds. They were discussing about the bonds. That's going to be on this agenda today, I believe.
Yep.
There was a thing with the Big Six, and that had to do with improvements to the sports with the high school, the varsity football field, the JV field, the Plymouth pools, Canton pools. There was a couple other things about the arts, bands and dressing rooms, outdoor spaces and soccer fields. And the last one, there was a fund of $80,000 that was found, and they are going to, they had the athletic directors for all 3 high schools, and they were given some input on what to spend the money on.
Great. Thank you.
Yep.
And so we'll also have another F&O meeting.
And there's another F&O meeting on March 21st at 4:30 over here.
Yep. They're always entertaining, always fun, always lots of great detail. We encourage the entire community to come.
There's quite a bit of people showing up too.
Really?
Yeah, it was a good turnout.
That's because I wasn't there.
I was there, and I got to sit at the table because you weren't there.
Oh, there we go.
Next, we'll skip back to the Student Performance and Achievement Committee. Member Sidhu.
Thank you. We met this past Wednesday, and we had a lot of agenda items, so we didn't get through everything, unfortunately. But we did talk about, we got a nice presentation about the K-12 mathematics program, which actually you're going to see later on today. And we spent quite a bit of time on the online blended learning options that are occurring at the high school level and the growth involved with the online learning programs here. And of course, the out-of-country field trip that we approved earlier. Now, coming up on April 11th will be our next meeting at 4:30. That is a Thursday. And we will talk about the dual enrollment early middle college programs that we've been talking about for the past 2 months. We will get to that agenda item on the 11th of April. Thank you.
Okay. And last, we have the Educational Excellence Foundation report. And we have a special guest who spoke earlier this evening, but Sharon Belobradich is now going to come as a member of the EEF board to speak about EEF.
I taught in this district for 40 years, and I've never sat or stood at this dais ever before. So twice in one night is quite an achievement.
We welcome you back anytime.
Oh, thank you. I don't know who said that, but Mr. Kehoe?
Yes.
I had a Patrick Kehoe, just like your spelling, in first grade, a long time ago. I've been wondering for a long time if it was you. Probably not.
Not me. I went to the district but didn't come here until the 4th grade.
Oh, gee, too bad. All right. My name is Sharon Belobradich. I taught in the district for 40 years, and I taught first at Byrd, and then I went to Miller, and then I went to Hoban when they opened. And I think I loved every minute that I spent in the classroom. I think if the administration, I didn't tell them this at the time, but I think if they had said to me, next year there's no money, so you won't have a job, I would have said, I will work free. That's how much I loved my first and second graders. And that's one of mine right over there. And every time I look in and look at his desk, he says, you are not happy with this, are you? And I say, well, probably could use a little organizing, and hasn't changed a lot, I'll tell you. And he still had that smile, and that's a winning smile. Anyway, I absolutely loved what I did, and I have been trying in the last almost 20 years since I retired to give back to this district because I love it. I have lived here for over 50 years, and this is my home. When people say to me, why don't you go to Florida in the winter? And I say, and spend my time with old people? Are you kidding? Never. So I'm to share with you this evening about the Educational Excellence Foundation, and I know that some people go, EEF? What does that mean? We're the foundation that supports the schools. We held our annual meeting last month, and we would like to take this opportunity to thank Kate Bruninsky for continuing to serve as our representative on our board, and also to Heather Colombo for continuing her service as the PCEA representative. And she's also going to be the vice chair of the foundation, just what she needs. We appreciate both Kate and Heather's time, talents, and leadership, and look forward to another successful year. We'd also like to make you aware that we're launching an exciting new campaign in the next few weeks called Our Children, Our Future. This is the first time we are doing a direct ask to families in the district to financially support our foundation. We're asking that every family in the district give what they can to support our teachers. With such a large district, family support could have a powerful impact. We have 11,000 families in this district. If every family in the district gave $10 to the foundation in support of P-CCS teachers and students, we could make a huge impact in supporting classroom experiences. We are excited that through this campaign, we will help spread the word of who we are as a foundation and allow our community members the chance to support. A direct mail piece will be mailed to district families, and a social media campaign will soon follow. This is an exciting venture that is new for us, and we can't wait to share our work with the community. In fact, for the last 2-3 weeks, 2 members of the foundation board have been going to all the PTO, that's really old, PTO meetings and trying to share with them and having them support us as well. Finally, we would like to thank the P-CCS School Board, the PCEA, and the PCA for their support of Uncorked on April 26th. We greatly appreciate your partnership again this year, and we look forward to seeing you next month at our event. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak here tonight.
Thank you, Sharon. Next, we are at letter D of our agenda, which is citizens' comments. I have received one card. If anybody else wishes to speak, please ask or put your hand up and Mr. Brandon will get you a card. If nobody else wishes to speak, then I'm going to ask Darren Sylvester to come up, please. As you know, you'll have 3 minutes, and Mr. Brandon will be timing you.
Thank you. And just a little ad lib to start. I'd like to thank Chuck Portelli and Sharon Bell-Bradish for all they've done. Part of what I get to see is when I come up here is a reverence for the past, a reverence for some great times and some excellent teachers and some quality schools and everything that I've enjoyed so much about being a part of this district. My name is Darren Sylvester. I live in Sunflower Subdivision. My wife and I, along with our 2 oldest children, are graduates of the park. Our youngest is currently a freshman at Plymouth. I am completing my 23rd year of teaching at Salem High School, and yes, my wife and I are taxpayers in this district. 23 years ago, I left a job at Rouge Steel. I left that job because I believed the job had both known and unknown dangers. The knowns were easy. I could be hit by a 30,000-pound crane, I could fall in a hole, or I could even have a coil of steel fall on me. The unknowns were what really scared me. It was one dirty place. It was dirty on the ground, dirty on the walls, dirty in the bathrooms, and dirty in the air. If I stayed, I worried about my health. I figured I should use my degree in education and seek employment in teaching. Fortunately, I was hired that fall as a social studies teacher at Salem. When I started at Salem, my feelings were spot on. It was cleaner, it was safer. I got paid a whole heck of a lot less, but it was the right decision for me. Today, Salem looks the worst it's ever looked, and I feel so bad for my boss, who works so hard to ensure that every day the school is clean for her students and her staff. When the economy tanked, our district let go long-time dedicated employees to sign with GRBS. We were supposed to get quality service at lower costs. This never happened. I have read the report that is to be discussed tonight. It might be the greatest example of great inflation I have witnessed in my 23 years of service to this district. The scores are, well, ridiculous. After seeing the way the school has looked since returning from December and January breaks, I've begun to take some notes and document them with photographs and video. These are just a few of the highlights. The water fountain on the south hall of Salem had a stain underneath it for 3 weeks. 3 weeks of dirt and grime right underneath the water fountain. All I did was put a little water on it, use my shoe, and push it, and it went away. It was 3 full weeks. I have the video to show it if you'd like to see it. Today, that same water fountain had trash, paper, and, yes, used gum in the fountain at 6:30 a.m. When I walked in. It was all still present at 3 p.m., except for the one Dr. Pepper wrapper that was now thrown on the floor from where it was in the water fountain. I have the video to show it. Gum all over the floor, all over the second floor of Salem. Many of these pieces have been there for weeks. I have the pictures and video to show it. Stains all over the walls of Salem. The rating gives a 9.9 out of 10. This specific score might be the most blatantly false score of them all. The toilets in Salem staff bathroom were not clean for more than 3 days last week. There were fecal stains and blood spatter all over the toilet and on the bottom of the toilet seat. The page for the restrooms on the sheet for the evaluations doesn't even list a section for toilets, so maybe that's why they're not cleaned. The list goes on, but I only have 3 minutes. So when I come home from school, I have found workers camped in there, and this is on later in the day. I found campers in the teachers, I found workers camped in the teachers' lounge playing on their cell phones. I'm not sure how many years I have left, maybe 2, maybe 10, but I'm concerned with the filth that we're working in that might affect my health, will affect my kids' health, will affect the health of my students. This company was hired to do a job, and when I look at Salem, they're failing miserably, regardless of what some great inflated PowerPoint might say later this evening. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay. Next, we are at administrative reports, recommendations. First is the superintendent's report, and I believe Mr. Brandon, you are going to.
Yes, good evening to the board and the community. We'd like to kick off tonight's superintendent's report on behalf of Superintendent Merritt by really thanking a group of people that have become so important in the district, and that's our local realtors. This past week, we had our 4th annual Realtors Breakfast, where the district hosted 80-plus local real estate professionals to come and learn more about P-CCS. It was a fantastic morning. It was a great opportunity to equip our local realtors, who really are our first line of information about the school district for many people looking to join our community, with as much information about our great school district as possible. So we want to thank our realtors for coming out, being part of the morning. We had some great speakers from the district, including some building principals, And it just really was an excellent morning where we were able to elevate the district and the community. And so I want to give a shout out to our local realtors and everybody that was part of the event. Tonight, we're really pleased to have a group of students here from the really amazing group known as the Park Players, which is our PCEP theater group. The Park Players, for many years, many decades, have been doing wonderful work in the community, learning more about how to put on the highest of quality of productions when it comes to theater. And we're really honored to have some students here tonight because this month is Theater in Our Schools Month. And so some students are going to come and talk about the Park Players and Theater in Our Schools Month, and it just happens to be that they are in a show season right now. So this coming weekend on the 15th and 16th, Park Players will be presenting the school version of Les Miserables at the Gloria Logan Auditorium at 7 p.m. And then if you can't catch it this weekend, a week later, they will be presenting the same show on the 22nd and 23rd. So on behalf of Superintendent Merritt, we'd like to welcome the Park Players tonight to talk about Theater in Our Schools Month here at tonight's board meeting. So guys, take it away.
I'm just going to start out. My name is Dalton Barthold. I've been here many times before. I usually come and talk about our wonderful program that we have. I say that I'm the president of the Thespian Troupe, and these are the Thespians. So I'm glad that you guys finally get to meet them. There are two people here that wanted to share their stories and experiences with you really quick about a little bit more about what we do and their experience at high school theater.
Hello, my name is Abhinan Keshamani. I am a sophomore at Plymouth High School right now, and, well, last year coming in as a freshman, I was new to the school. I didn't really know anyone, and all my friends from middle school I just never, saw them anymore, and I was kind of lost, and I'm not really good at talking to people when I first meet them because I'm kind of shy. And, well, I auditioned for the musical, the fall musical, and I was cast, and I met a really great group of people that I just love being around every single day. Going to rehearsal is probably the highlight of my day every single day of the school year. And when the show's done, it's kind of sad to go to school because I won't see them anymore because I'm in a different building all day. And I look forward to that one day a month where we meet for a thespian meeting and we have fun and we have our monthly thespian activities, and it's just a great fun time, and I know a lot of people in the Park Players Theater Company can say the same about being in that community. Thank you.
Hello, my name is John Oatney. I'm a senior at Salem High School. When I was in second grade, I started soccer, and I realized fairly quickly that that wasn't right for me, that my feet were more made for dancing. In fifth grade, I discovered theater, and for years, I did nothing but act. I would be in musicals and plays all over. But it became very expensive doing it in the community. So when I got to the high school, I was very pleased to discover that I could start acting much more affordably and with a group of people who are just as wonderful as all the people I've acted with forever. Now, at Park Players, I met the love of my life, and most people, the people behind me, might think that I mean my girlfriend, but no, I mean my passion for theater. I have always loved being on the stage and being able to present the truest side of myself. It is where I feel the most at home, and I've discovered this passion at Park Players and through theater. And I know many other people who feel the same way. Most of the people that I know who are in Park Players have said that they would love to continue doing theater through college, would love to study acting. And I'm one of those people. I'd love to become a professional actor. It's something that I have learned to love so much at this school. I've been given so much encouragement and so much joy from being in this company. Thank you.
So a big highlight for us is Theater in Our Schools Month. We take really great pride in March. It's usually our spring musical. Reading month is great and all, but we do theater, so we celebrate that. So the Educational Theater Association that runs basically the Thespian area, They created a list of facts. We usually post like a fact for 31 days, the entire month. So I'd just like to share 3 facts that I found really interesting with you guys, who might also find it interesting. In 2015, students who took 4 years of arts classes in high school scored an average of 92 points higher on their SATs than students who took only 1 half year or less. 89% of surveyed business executives participated in the arts during their school careers. And most high school theater programs rely entirely on box office revenues to support their activities, which is us, which we are not complaining about because we love being self-sufficient and all. But this is really meant to highlight like what we do, and I know that you guys appreciate us, and we appreciate you guys all as well. And so the last thing to mention is, like Mr. Brandon said, we do have a spring musical coming up. We all just came here from Les Mis, and so we really invite everybody to come see it. A free ticket is granted for you guys, so we really appreciate your support, and we appreciate your voices. Are there any questions about theater in our schools? Any questions for the thespians, because I talk a lot?
What were the dates again?
15th, 16th, 22nd, and 23rd at 7 p.m. in Salem High School.
Sorry, 15th, 16th?
22nd, 23rd. Friday, Saturday, Friday, Saturday.
And what times?
7 p.m.
7 p.m. on all of those dates.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
No matinee.
Well.
Any other questions?
No, but thank you for bringing your team. We appreciate that.
Thank you. I appreciate them too.
So I want to say thank you for coming tonight and letting us know all about Theater in Our Schools Month. I wasn't aware of that until tonight, so good thing you came. I also want to commend you on tackling Les Mis, because that is quite an accomplishment, I think.
Thank you. All right. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up, we're on teaching and learning. Dr. Bender.
Thank you, President Borninski, and good evening, members of the board. The staff at Miller Elementary recognize the importance of the balance between solid academic programming and social-emotional learning. The students experience deep content learning and community building and benefit from a range of supports. We will hear this evening how staff, family members, and the greater community contribute to the success of the students at Miller. And here to begin the presentation is Principal Blair Kelso.
Good evening. I apologize ahead of time for my voice. Thank you so much for having us tonight. Before I start, I want to introduce who is with me. I have Torian Billings, who is our student support coordinator. I have Dana McGuire, she is our literacy interventionist, and John Neer, who is one of our 4th grade teachers. So tonight, we're going to be talking a lot about our school culture and climate. So 4 years ago, as you guys all know, we went through large redistricting in Plymouth Canton. And with that redistricting, it changed the face of what Miller looked like. It brought together 3 different staff populations, 2 different student populations, and a lot of traditions from schools, a lot of memories, a lot of experiences that everyone wanted to have involved everywhere, but it left us not knowing what does it mean to be a Miller Mustang, and what does it mean to be a student or family at Miller. And so we have been working really hard to develop what does it mean to be a Miller student, and also to honor, with that redistricting, it brought tremendous diversity to our building. And so we are really focusing on being culturally responsive and bringing restorative practices and positive behavior intervention supports, which as we go on, you'll be hearing it as PBIS. And that's the work that we have been doing throughout the building. The picture that you see up here, we are focusing right now on Miller Pride. And at the very beginning of the year, we have our first activity, and the PTO provides for every single student and staff member a Miller Mustang t-shirt. And so that's a picture of our entire school this year together to bring us together as one school, showing our pride in being a Miller Mustang. So as I talked about, our kind of tagline is "We are Miller and we are proud," and we're focusing on showing Miller pride throughout the entire day to elevate every student throughout the day. And it's the foundation of all of our conversations, our lessons, our interactions with students, and the tenets of PBIS. So PBIS is a structure that often you think of as just behavior supports, but we're looking at it across all levels, from academic, being culturally responsive, and behavioral. So today, as I turn it over to the rest of my team, we're going to be talking about how that is playing a role in everything we do every day to elevate our students. So I'm going to have Mr. Billings come up.
So part of our mission with PBIS is to make it school-wide. Okay. Part of our mission is to make it school-wide, so we've established common language and expectations through every part of the building at Miller, and also extending that to other parts such as the cafeteria and even past the building in the bus with our PBIS on the bus program. We've partnered with Durham Transportation and the bus drivers to create a program on the bus to reward students for positive behavior. So at the beginning of the year, we meet with the bus drivers and we get a chance to hear their questions and concerns about students on the bus, and we get a chance to get a common vision on what riding on the bus should look like, and we come up with the bus matrix and a chips to reward our students, and we've seen a positive impact on our students' ride to and from school. We are also focusing on things such as restorative practices, so we are using restorative circles daily in the classroom. At the beginning and end of the day, if you take a look at that picture on the left, that's an example of a restorative circle. They're used to not only build relationships with students by getting to know them, but also to help work through challenging situations and problems. We also have monthly PBIS rewards to reward our students for making good choices and for positive behavior and for displaying their Miller pride throughout the building. So that's what that center picture shows, a game board reward for meeting our goal. And then also in the third picture, you'll see a teacher using our Second Step program. Second Step promotes social and emotional learning, learning with skills like problem solving and conflict resolution, and especially empathy. Is created by the Committee for Children. They've been around for 40 or so years and been recognized by the White House and things like that. So that's something we're doing school-wide in every classroom to help students with social and emotional learning. We are also focusing on cultural responsive instruction, and so we have experiences throughout the year. We have times where we highlight cultural responsiveness, like with our International Week, Black History Month, our famous first poster board, and also our Kindness Rocks, but it's really a focus throughout the year. It's something that we are embedded in everything we're doing, everything we do, not just in teaching and learning, but all of our interactions with our students throughout the day. So those are some of our social emotional pieces that we're working on throughout the building. I'm gonna pass it over to Mr. Neer, or Dennis. I'm sorry, Ms. McGuire.
That's okay. So I get to talk about the work that we do with the students. We talked about that social emotional piece, but there's also that academic piece. We have some very strong and successful support for our students. We have an ELD teacher that is working with our English language development learners, a math interventionist that supports our students, and we have 2 full-time reading intervention support teachers, one of which is me. Our goal as intervention, all the intervention that we provide, our primary goal is always to get the students into the classroom as soon and as quickly as they can, to dismiss us from the need, to dismiss them from the need of our intervention support. And we've been rather successful in doing that. Our key is always one of Mrs. Kelso's taglines, as she said before, is that first best instruction. And so we're always looking for that first best instruction to come from the classroom teacher. And so how can we help support that within the classrooms?
Our EL population proficiency levels have absolutely increased. Our ELD, the number of students that receive that direct service, has decreased because of their proficiency levels. And we've seen continued student growth in both reading and math throughout our building. As we look at our families, so a huge piece of student success is that family connection and making sure that we bridge that home to school gap. We begin that each year, actually before the year starts, with kindergarten meetups. So our kindergarten parents often meet up on the playground for some informal times where they can come, meet each other, get to know each other. Mrs. Kelso is there. Often some of the kindergarten teachers try to get there just so they can put a face to the name and start to become familiar with Miller. We have our back to school bash in which families came together to share s'mores and activities at Miller, so having some fun time. We have an amazing program that we've earned a grant for. It's called Block. Some of you may know that as a teen after school program. We have Block that comes to our building to meet with students once a week. To help support those students. That is in partnership with the Canton Police Department. A wonderful face to our community, teaching those students many skills, tying back to that social emotional learning. That has increased this year, and that students also are receiving swim lessons through that. So the block is helping to transport students to the summit, and so they also receive swim lessons. We're holding a blood drive on Thursday, tomorrow, thank you, tomorrow, and there are still openings, so if anybody is due to give blood, you are more than welcome to go to the redcross.org and sign up for Miller's Blood Drive. We have a student-run credit union. Girls on the Run has been popular for many years, and this year we're very excited because we're adding in Stride, which is a program for the gentlemen in our building. So not just Girls on the Run, but we now have Stride. Mrs. Kelso, Mr. Billings offer coffee and conversations with the parents to come share their thoughts, their concerns, how we can better ourselves at Miller. We have many adult volunteers, and one of the highlights of those adult volunteers are the Miller Mentors that Mr. Billings has started. And so that is bringing in male role models into our buildings. They are helping to volunteer throughout the day. They go into the classrooms, working with the students. And so it's just been wonderful to see these men come in and the kids get to see them, and it used to be, why is he here? And now they know, oh, he's here to be with us. So it's a really cool way to help involve those families.
I get to talk about educators. So as an educator at Miller, we're able to participate in the restorative practices through the use of the district provided PD. And that has allowed us to extend that into a building-wide book study where we learn to use the community circles and restorative circles to support our student learning. We also continue our conversation about being a trauma-sensitive school. We understand as educators that these students come to us maybe with something personal in their personal backpacks. So we want to build that personal welcome for each student so that they feel like they can come to school and trust the people they see and that we trust them. And it makes us as educators want to do best for all kids. And as educators, we have been developing a school-wide behavior matrix, which allows us to teach and reteach the matrix through videos and slideshows. This helps us establish a common language to use throughout the building. That is also a representative for during our restorative circles as something to use as a reference. Some of our developing systems that we've made around the school, we have programs like LAP, which helps students make a lap around the building to help them calm down. And we have calming baskets and check-in, check-outs. This allows students to, they're like sensory activities that will allow students to to get back into the classroom and be the most successful for that day. One of the things that I am very passionate about is the Miller Pride. We have these posters like the one in blue up around in all classrooms and on our walls. It helps students remember to be productive, respectful, independent learners with integrity, determined to achieve excellence every day. And we also have a Miller Pride Award for each student. Each student can be recognized by a staff member for going above and beyond and following that matrix. And what I really like and enjoy is we have a Miller Pride Award for all staff members as well. So each staff member can nominate another staff member for going above and beyond. And as we talked about being redistricted and filling in a new Miller, we are able to, I feel that our staff is one of the best around. And I would be in trouble by one of our PE teachers if I didn't mention that we have one of the biggest volleyball teams in the district for teachers, and we are undefeated at this point.
Is that a challenge?
Another thing I want to point out about the Miller Pride Award is something that we kicked off this year. And we're really big on making sure that we have those positive connections with home, because so often we make phone calls and all we are calling about is something that went wrong or somewhere where we need help. And the kids receive a certificate, and we talk to them about why they received it. And one of the coolest things at the beginning of this year is I had a 5th grader come in and told me that he had 2 kindergartners that needed to receive Miller Pride Awards. And so they got to come down and meet with those kindergartners and give them that certificate. And so when we called home, it's always Mr. Billings or I making the phone calls, but we shared with them that it wasn't a teacher, it was a student that recognized that their 2 kindergartners had shown what it meant to show Miller Pride throughout the building. So that was really neat. So the kids are really honoring it. One of the pictures a little while ago, we have a wall, it's called Mustang Pride Wall, and they get their picture with their certificate and it's up for the month. And so they go by and they hold us accountable, like, when's my picture going up? And we have to remind them that, it's a month delayed. So we get them all and put them up, but they're watching and their parents come in and check them out. So it's been a huge success. And the teachers as well. I try to get their pictures on the wall. They weren't having it, but you can see it posted in their classrooms. And it's just a way to acknowledge each other for demonstrating what does it mean to have pride in what we're doing as teachers, as learners, but then also for our kids every day. Looking forward, we are really focusing on, our goal is keeping our students in their seats, in their classrooms, and being successful so that we can have that academic growth. But in order to do that, we also have to have the whole social emotional learning and have students understand what it just means to be a community member, a citizen in our school. And so we're doing more and more activities. So we're structuring more structured play and extracurricular activities. One of the things that just was kicked off was our Miller Basketball Association, also known as the MBA. We had playoffs today. And then as it warms up, we're going to start a kickball league as well. And it's really improved. The kids have teams. We ended up with 4 different leagues with it. And it's improved kids knowing how to play with each other, which is something that we're trying to figure out, how do we teach them to do that? And they're, with that structured play, they are. And that's how we're also using our Miller mentors. We're also kicking off a lunch STEM club. Mr. Neer is going to be leading that up through the Bosch grant. But we're continuing to work on greater family involvement. And one of the things we're bringing in the spring is Career Day. So if anyone wants to come and share your career with our students, we'd love to have you, because we want to show the kids that there's all different jobs out there for whatever that is that they're interested in. We start our day every day with the Miller Pledge. And so I want to end with our Miller Pledge. So Mr. Brandon has that for us, I believe.
I am safe, I am respectful, I am responsible, I am Miller, and I am proud.
Thank you for having us. Are there any questions?
When's Career Day?
I don't think we have a set date. We're trying to get all of our volunteers right now and our speakers.
Can you send us a note?
Absolutely.
Great. And thank you for not only giving us this presentation, but also bringing your staff with you. So it's always great to see the depth of capabilities in the schools. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I could have probably brought my whole staff, but we try to narrow it down because you wanted us to keep it short.
Any other questions? Mr. Lazarowitz?
Yeah. With the EL students, how many students are in a group, or do they get taught one-on-one?
So it depends on their level. We have, this year, we're the third or fourth largest population of EL students that are either level 0 or level 1. So students that are new English learners will have either one-to-one instruction, or the biggest group would be 3 students. If they're higher than the level, I can't think of exactly what, if they're higher, then the group might be a little bit bigger, but it never gets more than 5.
And that's for a teacher or a parapro? That teaches?
We have an ELD teacher. So we have a separate classroom that the kids, all of our new students actually get pulled out and get English instruction from an ELD teacher.
So it's not a push-in, it's a pull-out?
No, we also do have push-in with parapros for the students that have a higher level of proficiency in English.
Okay. And the blue plastic cups, what's that for?
That was from the STEM activities that went through. They were building. It's supposed to be like speed stacking, but this was a kindergarten class. I think they made
Looks
more
like they're
of
having fun though.
Yeah, that was it was during library.
Okay.
They have the STEM activities that travel between the librarians, and so that was during that
So
time.
the student that's up there on the picture getting the award, Eric, I
Yes.
believe, he had to make the picture bigger. So that was a Miller Award?
Yep, that was a
got?
Miller Pride Award.
And his picture goes up on the wall
Yes.
for the month?
Yep.
And what month was that? Was it
I think he was just January.
So
Yeah,
recent.
it was just a recent
Recent
one.
picture.
He's
Okay.
one of our staff children, so I asked him if it was all right if I put his picture up.
No, he did a good job. Nice
was very
picture.
proud to
Yeah,
be-
no, I see that, definitely. And you said that there's a basketball playoff going
Yep,
on?
today was our first round of playoffs.
Now, is that during school?
Yes, it's during our second recess.
Is that, so it's inside the gym?
Yes.
So when's the next round?
Next Tuesday, we're actually taking it outdoors, so people can see the championship. We had a Final Four.
There was a Final Four?
That's next Tuesday.
Next week is the Final Four, so.
Okay.
We have the third grade girls championship, and then the other grades just had the Final Four, so there'll be plenty of space outdoors if you want to stop by.
2
No,
o'clock.
definitely 2 o'clock.
2 o'clock.
If I'm off, I'd like to
Yep.
stop on by and take a look at the game.
Yeah, absolutely. The picture that's up there is actually one of the students challenged me in the fall to a game.
So how'd you do?
I won.
Okay.
But
Look at that face.
he challenged me again. We're playing horse, and once it warms up. Just this past week, actually, he challenged me.
I was wondering, could you explain a little bit about the Miller's debug system?
Absolutely. So what we went through is we realized that one of the areas that our kids needed some language around was how to deal with different conflict. And it could be simple conflict or, for our older kids, some greater conflict that they're facing with each other. And so we created a system that gave the kids language when they were faced with that conflict. So about saying, please stop what you're doing, and then escalating that to talking more firmly, and then if it's not working, to then go tell an adult. So trying to give them that language. And it's also tied into second step that has more phrases for the kids to use. Starting in kindergarten, they use a bug and a wish. So you're bugging me when, I wish you would. And then when it gets up to 5th grade, it says, I want you to stop because. So it kind of evolves as they get older, but we call it a debug. So then they finally remember kindergarten. They're like, it's like a bug and a wish. We're like, yep, exactly. So that's why it has the name.
Well, I saw it in here and I thought it was great. I wish I had had that for my kids. So.
We have, I think they're like 11 by 17 posters in every classroom and every teaching space. for the kids, and that's something that's reviewed. We do it at the beginning of the year, and then again when we come back in January, and then obviously there's probably restorative circles that happen quite frequently around it, but we have scheduled times that we reteach certain things, like after spring break. We revisit it as well.
Other questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Dr. Bender?
Yes, thank you, Mrs. Borninski. And this evening, we're very excited to share the good work that is taking place to support student learning in math throughout the district. We are engaged in deepening our learning about the Michigan academic standards and strengthening our instructional practices. We will start with our Director of Curriculum and Professional Development, Dr. Brady, who will begin by connecting our work to the dynamic plan. Dr. Brady.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Every time I come, there's always so many wonderful things, and I think, oh, maybe mine's not as exciting as Chuck Portelli tonight. I don't know. We'll see. So happy to be back with you. Tanya and I both are happy to be back. Tonight we're going to talk about math, and the last time we were with you, we talked about science, which when we shared, that was K-12, everything was in the exact same place. Tonight, that's a little bit different, and so we're going to go back to kind of more like ELA and social studies when we shared that different levels are in different places, and we're going to share with you what's happening with all of that. Each time we come, we direct you back to where we are inside of the dynamic plan, and we're the second sub-bullet under developing high-quality curriculum, instruction, and assessment. And regardless of what the content is, you've heard me say this every single time, we're here to make sure that we are elevating every student every day. My team does that every single day. Our task is to make sure students have what they need. As I stated a little moment ago, that when the math is in different places, and so I've shared with you many times, the board many times, regarding we're using a 4-phase system to review our curriculum to make sure that we're always up to date. The math does sit in different places, so you'll notice during this school year, the elementary math is in what is considered phase 1. Tanya will share more information about that. And then our 6 through 12 math is in what's in phase 3, implementing, and you'll notice that that's going to go across actually 2 years of time, so it's going to take us some time to fully implement everything. Again, Tanya will share some more information. So we have a few goals for our K-12 math program. The first is to make sure that we're providing staff with a concept-based approach to math. So kind of what does that mean? In the past, math was more rote learning. You memorized it, you knew it, you put it down on a test, and you moved on. And that's not where we're going anymore. Students need to be able to defend answers. They need to be able to listen to, make arguments about why they decided what they decided, and there's many approaches that students can take to solving questions. They didn't look like that. For example, when I was in school, that's not how it looked. So we want to make sure that our math is student-centered, so that it's individual for students, as well as having the resources that teachers need. You've heard me share several times about being vertically aligned, and what does that mean? I'm going to share with you in another slide a little bit more about that, give you a little bit more depth on that. And then we also want to make sure we provide teachers with the support that they need. We've talked about this with the coaching. We want to make sure that they have what they need to support each student every day, and especially when you're going to hear in a little bit, we're going to be rolling out some new things, and there's some changes to what we're doing. We want teachers to be prepared. The math standards, like the last time we shared, like the science standards, did make a large shift. So like I shared in the past, we had, it was rote learning. That was kind of what we needed to do. For example, as a student, I carried the 1 because I was told to carry the 1. I had no idea why I was carrying the 1, but I did. When I went and did my methods classes in college, I understood why I carried the 1. So we want students to know why they're carrying the 1. We need them to know the why. So we want them to have those 21st century skills. The content standards, the math content standards do that. There's a balance between the procedural piece, which is what I learned was just the procedure, and really having mathematical understanding behind it. So in order to do that, we want to make sure that we're increasing focus, coherence, and rigor. So what do those 3 things mean? So the focus, it used to be very wide. Students had to have lots and lots of different topics. So when the standards changed, that changed a little bit. There's less standards to cover, but they go more deeply so that, again, it's not rote knowledge, it's deeply understanding. The coherence is what I talked about earlier, that vertical piece, is making sure everything is alignment with each other. We don't want students to have to make the shifting. We need us to make the shift of how we speak with students and use consistency in language, which I'm going to talk about with the 8 mathematical practices. So if you think back to when we were here and sharing science, there were science practices that we talked about. Math has the same kind of thing. So it's how are we structuring our classes to make sure students are understanding the content, again, not rote. So there are 8 different ones. Most of them are rather self-explanatory. The second bullet, for example, reason abstractly and quantitatively. They need to be able, that's the argument comes in that with the third one. They have to be able to think through what they've done, explain the pieces that they've done. I put a picture up for the last one because sometimes it's confusing what look for and make use of structure means. So if you look at the example that I have up there, the student, so an I can statement might be, I can see and understand how numbers and spaces are organized and put together as parts and wholes. So they don't just know the number 341. They understand that that's 300s, 410s, ones, and I can draw it, I can manipulate it. So when I was carrying the 1, I didn't understand that. I was not using the look for and making use of structure. Tanya's going to come up, like we usually do, pass it off, so she can go into the specificity of each level and what we're currently working on.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm very excited to be here with you this evening to share about the exciting things that are going on in our district K through 12 in math. I'm going to begin by sharing the roles that teachers and students play in the classroom. The first is the teacher role. And with teachers, they are guiding the development of the math concepts and the procedures at the same time, and also embedding those practices that Deirdre just shared with you at all times. And this takes place in many different activities and in discussions that take place before, during, and after math exploration in the classroom. Okay, students' role. Students are encouraged to use multiple strategies to solve a problem. Students are also encouraged to support their solutions with mathematical reasoning. An important part of the learning process is not just being able to know the how to do it, but being able to explain the why. Why does it work? It may seem like students are being asked to take a longer pathway than necessary to get to an answer. Maybe they're drawing a picture, they're manipulating numbers in a way that seems like, well, gosh, this is like way more work that they have to do just to get the right answer. But the whole reason behind that is to develop math concepts and to develop that solid math understanding as they move forward. So when they learn like the shortcuts or the tricks, they know why those work, and they're not just using them just because they work. They just think it's going to get them the answer. Part of that is also being able to express math reasoning both verbally and in writing. So not only are they doing it, but they can express it clearly. Okay, the math standards support MTSS. The math standards were based on research that states when students are provided with equitable learning opportunities, students from diverse backgrounds are capable of engaging in mathematical practices and constructing meaning. Again, the emphasis is on the why that a solution works and not just getting the one correct answer. The new standards create room for student voice, for teachers to be flexible to the needs of students, and emphasizing the product or the process over the product. Next, I'm going to give you an overview of the district work we have going on, and then I will go in depth on each of these levels. At elementary, we're completing phase 1 of our curriculum cycle and moving into phase 2. Middle school continues support of implementing new math units and assessments, or in phase 3. And the high school, we have 7 courses at various levels in phases 1, 2, and 3, which I'll talk about. And then we're also using instructional coaches, most at the high school and at the middle school level. Okay, at the elementary level this year, we began in phase 1, where we're collecting information. We surveyed all elementary teachers regarding the alignment of our current resource, and the teachers reported that they don't see alignment between our current resource, which has been used for quite some time, and the Michigan math standards. They also shared that many of them spend time each week, sometimes hours, creating math materials so that they have materials that can be aligned, and also that they have materials that can differentiate for students' different needs in the classroom, doing that MTSS work with our students all the time. And our goal is to provide support for them as we move forward in that. The team that is, you see here pictured here, are working with standards. So we assembled a team of 14 people. There are teachers representing all grade levels, K through 5, and the schools, and special ed. And they're looking at standards and practices and looking at what's important to us in terms of teachers' roles, students' roles in the classroom, and then finding a resource that would support that. They developed a philosophy together. This is their philosophy. The next step for our team is to identify math resources that meet our philosophy to pilot next year. The pilot will include all 14 elementary schools and all grade levels, and our goal is to have, for example, if we have a second grade teacher piloting at Field, he or she would not be piloting alone. Another second grade teacher in the same building would be piloting at the same time, so that they have a planning partner and a reflection partner as they're going through the pilot. Okay. At the middle school level, we are implementing new units and using district common assessments in grades 6 through 8. These are all housed in our online platform, Rubicon Atlas. In August, before school started, all middle school teachers were trained in the standards of mathematical practice. And later, we're going to take a look at what that looks like in the middle school classroom. Let's see, as we go forward, we're also... I want to talk about two things here. When they're working with editing assessments, they're also looking at the curriculum as well. So when they're looking through and saying, well, does this work? Are we meeting their needs? Then we're making changes as needed. When we look at our data, we notice that there's a dip between 5th and 6th grade, which is the reason that we chose to focus our instructional rounds with 6th grade math teachers. So they're visiting other classrooms and having conversations around best instructional practices. And this is what math looks like in the middle school classroom. This is in this specific problem, there are two brothers with walking rates. So this is a problem based on linear relationships. They have two different walking rates, so obviously it's two different, they would make two different linear relationships here. And students were asked to create a race situation where the older brother who walks faster would win the race, giving his brother a head start, the younger brother would win the race, but not making the race last so long that he would end up passing up the brother. So they were looking at rates, and they were asked to find a solution, not being given a way to solve it. So I'm going to show you some different ways that students chose to solve the problem. And on the side, you can see the mathematical practices that were in action. So this student chose an algebraic approach and showed perseverance, and it looks like there's some guessing and checking going on there. This student chose to use a graph to show the relationship. So you see the blue line is the younger brother who got a head start. You can see where he catches up where the two lines meet. This student chose to use a table. And this student chose to model it on a number line. So these are all different ways to correctly answer the same question, giving students that voice in the classroom and that emphasis on there's more than one way to solve a problem and the emphasis on procedure. In this particular lesson in the middle school classroom, groups were given a set of data and asked to represent the data two different ways, in the two different ways where they're choosing. So these were heights of students in a class, which brings on good conversation in the classroom. And we have some collaboration going on. Classroom, and also giving students voice. So all students have voice in the classroom. Moving forward with middle school math, this year we're developing a course, Accelerated Math 6-7. It will be implemented in the fall of 2019 in all middle schools. This new pathway allows students to master all standards without skipping standards. Students who are successful in Accelerated Math 6-7 would advance to Accelerated Math 7-8 the following year, and this would put students on track to take a calculus as a senior. Okay. And at the high school level, we, as I shared earlier, we have 7 courses being developed, and they're at different phases. Algebra and advanced algebra are in phase 3. They're implementing at this point new units and rubric and reflection-based assessments. And I'm going to share what those assessments look like. And with it, their work is housed in Rubicon Atlas. Geometry and honors geometry are in phase 2 right now. So they are revising and developing their units and assessments that will be implemented next year, district-wide. And we have several teachers on the team who are working with piloting the assessments this year. Algebra 2 with trig, and honors algebra 2 with trig are in phase 1. So we have just assembled the team for that work. They will be beginning their work in May of this year, with next year the development taking place. This is a rubric-based assessment that also includes student reflection. This is from one of our advanced algebra courses this year. On each test, you can see that how a student will be graded is specifically stated in the rubric. This ensures consistency in grading, and it also is a communication piece to the student to let them know the level of mastery that's expected to be demonstrated on the assessment. In this assessment, you can see that the student scored 3 out of 3. The student gets the test back, he or she looks at it, and then there's a student reflection piece right underneath the question where the student reflects his or her own thoughts on that problem. In looking at this, a teacher grading it would say, oh, 3 out of 3, perfect. 100% student gets it, ready to move on. But the student reflected and said that he or she felt confused and was not completely confident and would like some more practice, which is excellent feedback for a teacher to know, you know what, even though the student scored 100%, he or she still needs some of my attention on this. We need to come back to it. The next example I'm going to show you is 2 student reflection responses. And here on this one, you can again see that students know exactly what they need to do. And this happened to be on inequalities. The 2 student reflection pieces, and the students both on this one did not receive full credit. One student said they were confused about the inequality and wrote a comparison so the student understands his or her mistake and also wants to review it. The second student indicated that he or she didn't pay attention, perhaps didn't read carefully. So again, great feedback for the teacher knowing, oh, okay, he or she has got this and she's good to go. Okay. At the high school level, we have 2 teachers who spend 1 hour a day as an instructional coach. Both teachers happen to be on our curriculum development team, which is a great blend because they've developed the curriculum that they're supporting the teachers in implementing this year. This has proven highly successful, and teachers have been able to make a lot of change in their instruction, having these ready resources available every day in their buildings. They model lessons, and they also invite teachers into the classroom to watch them teach. And these particular teachers, these teachers watched one of the coaches teach a lesson and then met with her afterward to talk about her strategies, why did she do things, and then asked for help in implementing it in their own classrooms. And as we've mentioned in the past, that using this form of professional development has proven very successful, where we have teachers really being able to make change and having that support while they're making change. And at this point, I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Deirdre Brady.
Okay. So 3 things just in summary, because again, when we come, I know that we share a lot of information. It can be overwhelming. So we're in process to make sure that we're developing the vertically aligned standards-based curriculum. So at the elementary, we're just getting started with that. So develop the philosophy. We're looking at some possible resources because we know our current resource has not been looked at in about 20 years, and that is something we need to do to make sure it's currently aligned. While that piloting goes on, we will be looking at pacing, assessments. We'll look at other curriculum and resources that we might need so that we're not just teaching from a textbook, because that is not what we want to do. We'll also be looking at instructional practices that we might need to support teachers in. The middle school, as stated, has already rolled things out, and so we're continuing to refine, but making sure that it's in alignment. As we do our K-5, we want to make sure that's in alignment with where our 6-8 already is, and as we're continuing into the high school. We want to eventually get them into the same phase as I've talked about. It is best when you do curriculum work that you have K-12 conversation about that, so that our middle school teachers are having conversation with our elementary and our high school. And so you'll notice when I come back to you next year that my curriculum cycle, a year will fall off or we're on the one end, and we're going to add a year, and you'll notice that it's going to start coming together so that we have K-12. So it all looks like science, that we'll eventually get there because we want to make sure that teachers have opportunities to talk to all levels. And then, as we've stated many times, coaching is very important. I'll echo what Tanya said about our algebra and advanced algebra group up at the high school has been very welcoming to the coaching that is happening there. It's shifted across time as they've gotten more used to what that looks like. It is new, and so anytime there's something new, you're trying to figure out exactly how that works. Our two coaches up there, Tanya and I meet with them every other week to make sure that they're feeling connected, because they do teach 4 hours a day, and then they're coaching the other hour. We want to make sure that they're connected to my whole team. They've done a lovely job of making sure that the teachers feel comfortable with where they're headed and making adjustments on the assessments and the curriculum as needed based on feedback. Any questions for Tanya or I?
Okay. Member Kehoe.
First of all, fantastic presentation. I'm really excited about some of the things that you're talking about here. I think it's exactly the right direction that we should be going. With respect to the instructional coaching, how do we provide, we take a teacher out of the classroom in that process. So that means that one of their hours they're spending doing that instructional coaching. Is that correct?
That's how it's happening at the high school with the rollout of algebra this year, correct?
Okay, so obviously that means we have to make space for our teachers because they're not able to teach as many classes in that process, but they're doing this really valuable work in other areas. So, I mean, this to me is exactly the kind of work that we should be doing, doing more of this instructional coaching work. You've only got 2 of them today, though, correct?
So we have, as we've shared, I have some full-time people who support.
Okay.
And then for the high school specifically, for algebra this year, we have 2 teachers who each have 1 hour of release time. So then I also have the K-3 literacy coach, and then there's the 2 K-12 all-area people that we have this year. So we have a combination.
Got it. So you mix up people that this is their full-time job to be instructional coaches, as well as those that are actually teaching and instructional coaching.
Correct. We have both that are happening, correct.
No, but is this only for algebra that we've got them doing that?
At this time. So we're having, as you heard, geometry is going to be in the same place where they're going to have the rubric-based assessments, which is a shift for what's happening. So our hope, because algebra and advanced algebra is in a really good place, and they're continuing, obviously, to work with them, is our hope is that we will be able to continue having those 2 coaches to be able to continue to work with geometry. Because what has happened is some of the geometry teachers have asked for support, which, of course, I've told the coaches, yes, if teachers want support, we want to support. But they've seen some of the work that's been done with algebra teachers, and they're like, we want in. So they have branched out a little bit from the algebra because obviously if a teacher would like some support and wants to brainstorm and be collegial with each other, we want that to happen.
Great. And then you talked about also instructional rounds between that were happening, I think, was it the middle school?
The middle school. Mm-hmm.
So are those just done within that school, or are they done across schools?
Across schools? Yeah. Sure. So it would be a group of teachers. Typically, there will be all the 6th grade teachers in one building. We'll go visit another building because they are typically familiar with what each other do. So our goal is to have them see other practices.
Perfect.
And we have even had some travel up to the high school to see some things that are going on up at the park.
So then we just bring in subs for that particular day in that process. Okay, great.
Correct.
Fantastic. Great thing. Last thing. The accelerated math program, which I'm really excited about seeing. I know that there's a lot of kids that end up wanting to move faster in math, but that there's a lot of anxiety within the math teachers and within the administration about skipping curriculum. So I'm really glad to see that these programs are in place. Is it half of 7th grade, or are they repeating kind of the material in 6, 7, and then 7, 8?
For the accelerated 6-7, they're covering all of the 6th grade standards and a portion of the 7th grade standards. And then the accelerated 7-8 is a portion, different 7th grade standards and then 8th grade standards.
Okay, got it. So they're doing 3 years and 2.
Correct.
Okay,
They're
and then,
essentially doing a year and a half in that year time.
right. And so then the other question on that is when I look at some of the students at at East that are in the TAG program. In the past, some of those students had moved directly into algebra in 7th grade and then geometry in 8th grade. And they've, in many cases, have been successful in doing that, and then moving forward into the high school in accelerated programs. How will those students fit into this process with what you're doing now?
Okay, so currently all 7th grade math students are tested at the end of 7th, or about spring of 7th grade, to determine which pathway is going to be best for them. They'll either go to 8th grade math or they'll go to advanced algebra. At the end of the accelerated 7-8, they will follow that same procedure. So they'll be assessed to determine if they should move on to advanced algebra. And some students might not be ready. And they might need some more 8th grade. 8th grade has a lot of strong pre-algebra concepts, and some of them, we're going to be open-minded. Some of them might be fit best there. If they take advanced algebra as an 8th grader, so if they take accelerated 6-7 as a 6th grader, then accelerated 7-8 as a 7th grader, and then advanced algebra as an 8th grader, and then they would move on to the park and be ready for calculus as a senior.
Right, totally understand that. I guess that right now there's a number of students that actually are going one grade faster than that. They're doing.
Okay, I'm sorry I didn't understand your question.
Yeah, so at East, there's a number of students that end up taking 8th grade math as a 6th grader, advanced algebra as a 7th grader, and then advanced geometry as an 8th grader.
Correct.
And those students then still continue on to the high school and are successful in that process.
Correct.
How in this curriculum and this work that you're doing are those students accommodated?
Though that pathway will still remain at East. So East will have accelerated 6-7, they'll have accelerated 7-8. But if it's a best fit for TAG students to follow that plan that's been there, that pathway would still be available for them.
Okay, so I guess then the only thing that causes me some anxiety with that is then we're potentially skipping curriculum for those students. Now, in general, those students are, they're getting some more advanced math at the elementary level. So, I mean, how do we bridge between the elementary process and the middle school process, so ultimately those kids that really can perform can go through that accelerated pathways and have that differentiated instruction without missing curriculum?
Sure. So TAG students are taught 6th grade math as 5th graders at Gallimore. So they cover the 6th grade standards before entering East Middle School. And then once they enter, most of them are actually in what is our accelerated 7-8 program. So they're getting 7th and 8th grade standards during their first year.
They're not really missing any of the 7th grade stuff. They might be missing a little tiny piece of that in doing the 7-8 program as a 6th grader, and then they'd move into algebra and geometry going beyond.
Correct.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay. Questions on this side? Any more? Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is finance and operations. Ms. Piaz.
Thank you, Madam President. Tonight we have with us Jason Donzis and Rich Welsh. Rich is our operations manager, and Jason is the vice president in charge of operations for GRBS. And they'll give the presentation that they gave to the F&O committee last Thursday on March 7th. Gentlemen.
Good evening. Today's purpose is to review the key performance indicators related to the custodial department to assess the cost, efficiency, and service levels of the custodial contract services. Inspections are completed first thing in the morning prior to the school start. This is done at all of our facilities. This review is of our second quarter from December 1st to February 28th. It compares everything from winter 2018, spring 2018, fall 2018, and winter of 2019, so it's the last 4 quarters. Anything with over a 10% variance considered as a focal point. Anything over a 20% is considered a hot item for immediate action. Second quarter highlights. It is the most difficult season to clean, and this season was was worse than most. Weather is a significant factor, especially in floors and entrances. High number of indoor activities also. Due to the snow and extreme cold, We didn't have that thaw at all in the middle of the time, so that salt just kept sitting and being carried into all of our buildings. At the high school, at the park, we're very concerned about making sure everything salts. That gets just carried into the building, and we had crystals in the building, which is kind of the first we've had that in a long time. So what happened was, because of that, we had two things either happening. We had people spending extra time to making sure that the halls and corridors were done, and that took them away from other jobs, other tasks that they didn't feel as important, or they did not finish the halls what we would have liked, how we would have liked them, because they were worried about other things. So we kind of had a myriad of everything going on at all the buildings. The next piece is a continued challenge to hire part-time workers. Candidates looking for full-time work or part-time work closer to home. Unemployment in the local area is still below 2%. People that want to work are working. People that don't want to work are not. It's harder for them to find that part-time position, that part-time shift, which is in a lot of our buildings, because we don't have 2 full FTEs in the elementary. Most of them have 1 in the 6-hour employee, so that's kind of hard sometimes. I'm going to turn it over to Jason to let him go over this, but at the end we'll go over with what the next step is and what we're trying to do together to collaboratively to right the ship.
So just a couple of sort of logistics, housekeeping, because we do have some new board members here. Just want to speak to process real quick. So how this happens, we met probably 3 years ago as a group, leadership from our company, leadership from the district, in a collaborative method to come up with how are we going to rate and create an assessment to understand what's clean and what's dirty. And through that process, one of the tools that came up that we were going to use was a form. It's basically the same form that was used to assess the custodial program when it was an in-house program. So that is still the document that we use today. And what happens is a member of our leadership staff and a member of representative of the building, whether that be the PE, whether it be the principal, the assistant principal, we complete the inspection and then both parties sign off on that inspection. The data that we're going to present now is basically a conglomeration of all of the data points that we collect over the quarter for every building. So it's an average across the district. Certainly there are areas that call our attention that need more work. There are areas where we feel that, hey, this is going really, really good. So what we're presenting today is the averages. So as we look at the entrances, so again, the strongest focus, the biggest challenge in the winter is getting the entrances clean, particularly as it relates to the floors. You find yourself having to do these floors sometimes 2 and 3 times just to get a meaningful result. And like Rich said, one of the things that happens then inevitably is other detail work gets pushed off. In this case, what we see is a continued challenge with entrance glass being free of smears. We see a couple of places where we have improvement in the flooring, but that first impression detail work of that entry glass is still a point of emphasis that we need to work on, as well as then other things that normally would be kept up on through the quarter, like lights. We see a little spike in some issue there. So we have noted that. Restrooms are one of the places that we saw the greatest need for improvement, particularly in this quarter. A lot of emphasis, again, focusing on the floors. That's a message that we've heard. We've heard it loud and clear that the floors is a big deal. The unfortunate unintended consequence to that is that we saw some of our categories of some detail work, specifically sinks and fixtures that have spiked up and are not to the detail level that we have. We have some categories, such as the vents, where it's such a minimal, small part of the overall score that anytime you get a markdown on there, it inevitably bumps that score over that concerned level. So we are monitoring that. Most specifically, when this data came out and we put it together, I did a couple of things myself. I went into a couple of buildings to just observe some processes. So one of the ways that we clean the bathrooms is with a machine. It's a power washing machine. And I found 2 things that were happening from a system standpoint that we can correct that will help these scores. The first one being, the concept is that you power wash everything down, And there are two modes. There's a high pressure mode and there's a low pressure mode. The low pressure mode is what's supposed to apply the chemistry. High pressure mode is basically power washing the surface, and then you put it back into the low pressure mode to rinse it down. That last step often gets skipped as a time-saving measure as people get in a hurry. So we need to slow that piece down, get a better rinse. That'll improve the walls, mirrors, fixtures, those sort of things. The second thing I actually found, and I haven't even told Rich this yet, is I'm finding a lot of people that are inadvertently putting the chemistry right into the water rather than allowing it to dispense into the clean water. So even if they were putting it on rinse, they're still rinsing it with water that has the chemistry in it. So the good news is it's pretty disinfected. The bad news is it does leave streaks and spots, and it doesn't present well. Corridors and stairwells, again, biggest challenge here being that focal point on the floors. As we continue to put more energy in the floors, there is some detail work that, particularly as you see, the drinking fountains was something that spiked up as needing some more attention, some more regular work. Those are typically designed to be regularly cleaned every day. And so we were finding some areas where people were skipping that step in lieu of more focus on the floor. The office spaces, this is a collaborative cleaning space. So elementary schools offices are cleaned by the plant engineers. Secondary school offices are cleaned by GRBS. So again, this was an area that we did not find that we have a great concern. There weren't any areas that were proven to be a focus. We do have a couple of hot spots in the district that we have to keep an eye on, but in general, the scores were good. And then ultimately the classroom, which is the key interest for the teachers, of course. Again, what we see is with the added focus on floors in the winter, battling that salt, battling that residue, again, we see some of the detail work spike up into those categories where we want to keep an eye on it, specifically windows and sills, excuse me, as well as whiteboards and trays. Again, in the scheme of the cleaning mechanism, those are the areas where our staff, when they're going, how am I going to get done on time and still get the floors clean to the level I need to, those are areas that we have found we're not getting as dressed in as much detail as they should. So ultimately, the final scores are here. So we did have a slight improvement. If you know, it's a difficult again thing to do over a multitude of data points. The biggest thing being with the biggest push on keeping floors clean, we do have some detail work pieces that need to be worked on. The next piece of the component is the work orders. So again, for the newer board members, what we do is we have a work order system that GRBS provides, which is called School Dude. While we provide this work order system to the district as intended to get feedback for ourselves, it also is utilized by the district for a variety of other things, including maintenance tracking and maintenance work orders. So it is a good benefit to the district all around. We try to look quarter to quarter on how our work order trends are. This was a big initiative that we've had over the past year to get communication through School Dude so that we could track it and see what the trends in the district are. So this is the first slide is the work order submissions from the last quarter, and then we can compare them with the work order submissions from this quarter. It's timely that Salem was mentioned because, as you can see from the work order, Salem is one of our hot spots. Salem is one of the most challenging buildings we have in the district. There's a variety of reasons for that. One of them is structural. It's a place where we tend to have a lot of change in staff. It's very difficult to keep that building staffed consistently. It's got a lot of hidden rooms, a lot of, it seems like every day I find a new door that I've never walked into. So there's some structural challenges with it. There's some relational challenges with it. And it's also the highest usage building. So managing the normal day-to-day cleaning as well as all of the activities and things that go on there. So it's really part of our action plan follow-up, but I'll mention it here in this context. It's a place where Rich and I are going to be doing some focus groups with our key members and looking at a redesign of how we clean that building. We have Rich has brought a couple of ideas to place that we're noodling through on a design change that we're going to pilot there. But in general, what we see, our greatest work orders continues to be requests. The largest portion of those requests we get continue to be the usage of the Clorox 360 machine in, this is winter, so illness.
And for the new board members, the Clorox 360 machine, what they are is, 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, we purchased 4 Clorox 360s that are complete sanitizers. They're ionized, they're battery powered. You can go into a classroom and pretty much sanitize the entire classroom. It goes under everything, touches all the points in about 7 minutes and be out of there, and your kids can be right back in there. So what we're doing with that, with high amounts of influenza A that we've had, these machines have been running around from building to building to building. This last 3 or 4 weeks have been, really an uptick in it. So that's where a lot of the requests come in.
So the other thing on the swing it the other way, so the work orders typically are, this is what isn't going well. We also do have a bonus program when we communicate what is going well, and there actually is now 2 more on this list because Linda in this building got 2 since we presented to the F&O meeting. So, what this is basically, it's if anybody says something positive about our folks, hey, Rich was over here working the other day and he did such a great job. Just if it's regular performance, if something happens that goes above and beyond, if we receive that communication, it can come through the work order system, it can come through an email, it can be a conversation that happens in the building. That staff member gets a bonus. Those accumulate over time where they continue to escalate on their bonus, and we do have a district winner at the end of the year for the employee of the year here in the district that gets an additional bonus beyond that. And then they all go into a drawing for the employee of the year for our company. So the more wows, if you will, if you get them, the more chances you have to win those awards.
So overall, cleaning results slightly improved over fall, but this definitely has been our hardest 6 months in a while. Still no categories are over 20% or higher for the full year. Improvement sustained results in all categories except for bathrooms. Restrooms was the biggest fall off. Entrance glass is always a battle, and we're always going to struggle with that. But because a couple issues with the floors, I keep saying I keep going back on the floors. I'm sorry, I should stop that. Work order results, participation continues to rise. That's good. That's how we know. That's how we can learn and to try to tweak things. The next step plan, Jason's going to speak a little bit about this, but I'm also going to say, Jason and I are, really forming in the forming stages of trying to get some key members in of our group, of his group, to collaborate, to work better, to try to figure out different ways that we can be cleaning to get the most efficiency out of the workers that we have. That is a constant battle that we're, always trying to look at outside the box and think of different ways. We've got 4 or 5 buildings that have been very hot this quarter. So those 4 or 5 buildings, I've really been keying on, and Jason's been, keying on, and we're going to try and, as I said, try and right the ship.
So there's 2 things in terms of what happens next. So as we look at this year so far, the challenge we've had, the labor market, the staffing piece, the work ethic in general, this concept of people, you come in, you get them moving, you get them motivated, they're doing the job, and then you go on to the next place, and then they stop, they sit down, they decide it's break time. Those sort of things. We've added or are adding, in the process of adding, 2 positions to our leadership team. The first, so our account manager here is a young lady named Amber. She's been here now for a couple of years. She's a parent in the district, and she's been a great asset to Plymouth Canton. But what we know that is she can only be in so many places at once. And so we have basically created a position that's an assistant for her. so that she can maintain her regular drumbeat of visiting with the principals and being in the buildings and responding to any issues or needs that come up throughout the day. And then she has Sam, who is her assistant, that is in the buildings in the morning, typically very early, 5:30 in the morning, checking buildings before they open. She's doing the inspection pieces now. And so there are now 2 people throughout the district during the day. Probably more importantly, in the evening, what was interesting is Amber actually took some time and went on second shift for a period of time to just work with the crews and work with our leadership and kind of see what you can see, if you will. And the impact and the results that had really led us to the decision of we want to put a management representative on second shift. So we are in the process of recruiting right now, and so our goal is by spring we'll have a manager that actually is on second shift when the majority of the work is happening and oversees that process. So those are kind of 3 key action steps that we're taking to push through the challenges that we're having.
Questions? Member Sidhu.
Can we go to the slide? Can we go to the slide that has November 2018? Work submissions, work order submissions? Can you tell us what's happening at Canton?
So Canton, from the beginning of this program, has always been the biggest user of the program. I don't know why that is, but they got on board quickly, and they use it for everything. So Canton is interesting because uniquely there, some of the challenges we've had that we've gotten work orders for quite a bit, especially the fall and in the winter, floors stand out a little bit more there because of the black tile. So we do get a higher level of work orders that are concerned about the floors. Things like when our cleaners are cleaning, they leave the classroom doors unlocked. This happens quite a bit in the park in general. If I look at work orders in the park, that we're really pushing our folks to go in and do your work. When you're done, shut the door and lock it. And so that we're not having classroom doors left open. That was a pretty common work order for Canton, as well as the park in general.
But if you look past in past years, Canton has always led the segue of they are always that's how they communicate, which is great because that's how they communicate.
Okay. My next question is about the restrooms. Can you address the toilet situation? Because how is that part of your list?
So again, I go back to one of the challenges with the method we're using now is that we're using a form. The tool that we're using is a sort of historically a Plymouth Canton form. In all honesty, it probably there's a pro and a con. It really needs to be revised because I do think it should say, right now it says like sinks and fixtures is kind of a general category. It does not specifically say anything about the toilets. It also has nothing about media centers. It has nothing about several other categories as well. The challenge is if we kind of revamp it and revise it, that we won't be able to really compare it to the historical data anymore. It'll kind of be like this is the new benchmark that we would build off of. It's certainly something we're open to looking at because I do think we could increase the detail on that for sure. But the original strategy was to use the same tool that had sort of always been used. So that's why we use it. It's completely open to future revisions or whatnot.
So, Jason, I thought in the past we had included toilets as fixtures.
Yes, they're in that lump sum of sinks and fixtures.
Okay.
Yep.
Member Keyhole?
Yeah, so with respect to the new benchmarks, I mean, prior to a little over a year ago, we weren't actually looking at historicals. We were only looking at point-in-time numbers.
Right.
If this is not representative of the way that you would want to look at the hotspots, then please propose new benchmarks and let's create a point in time, and we'll know that we don't have historic data for that, but we'll very quickly get historic data. So if they're not reflective of the things that we should be measuring, the things that the teachers care about, then absolutely let's start doing that.
Okay.
How often are the surveys done?
So the the inspection in this format, it's, so we have, between Sam and Amber, they do an inspection in every building twice a month.
Okay. Just for the new board members and for
Yep.
folks in the audience, if I remember correctly, these are all completely random.
Yes.
The school nor GRBS knows which school is going to be surveyed at a particular date or a particular time. Is that correct?
The only caveat is that I know, because I send them, but I don't, but the staff does not know, right?
Okay.
The building staff does.
Right. And so if you wanted to, go to a different school, then you could do that at any point in time, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So we had problems or concerns in the past about the fox watching the hen house. And I think that just for some of the new board members is that is not the process that's in place.
Also, in another aspect of overlooking is every Tuesday morning, I'm in buildings at 3 o'clock in the morning. I try to get as many buildings as I can. I average anywhere between 8 to 12 buildings every Tuesday morning before the kids get in there, before school gets in there, so that I'm constantly emailing and texting and funneling everything to Amber. And
If he finds a problem, 3:30 in the morning,
Good.
I'm on it.
Okay.
So-
The other thing I would say for Darren and for any of the other teachers that are here watching this at home, school dude, put the request in, inundate the system with the things that are not right. If you use the data, because it'll show up here in these reports, and we will see that information, and we will have those conversations. And if you're seeing that you're not getting that information or that the numbers aren't right, please let us know. But what we've seen is that the squeaky wheel gets fixed. And when we've looked at these things across the last 18 months to 2 years, is the teachers that send that stuff in, then, if that's not what you're seeing, then let's have a conversation offline. The last thing I wanted to mention was I think that there was a comment made about this being grade inflation. I think that it's not necessarily grade inflation, but I think we have a problem of averages. We may have a problem where one school is doing fantastic and other schools are just god-awful in terms of what's happening. And the average could come out to be great. You're doing okay in that process. And I'm afraid that that's what we're seeing in this activity. One of the things I'd like to see us change is to add a process for each of these categories. You give us the worst school and the best school in that category and tell us what made the school that was best, and what made the school that was worse. And we can talk about that for each of the categories. Now, if that's too much information to bring forward to the full board, we can do that in the F&O meeting. But I think that I don't want us to lose the outliers in the process. And I also don't want us to just focus on the negative ones, because there may be schools that are doing a fantastic job, and let's understand what those schools are doing well in that particular category so that ultimately you can talk to us about how you're trying to replicate those practices. So I think that if we do that, then I think that that'll help us just to start to understand. The last question I had, I'm sorry, I said that was the last one, is that when you have things that are over 20%, that's not just on the overall averages, that's at each school that you also bring those focuses there, correct?
Yeah, and that's a point well made in general. So, in all transparency, the way that we present the data here, we try to do it in as concise of a way as we can to kind of show you district-wide what's going on. I'm using each individual report. I have a report that comes to me every week that shows where we've been, what those scores are. I get a copy of every inspection. So we're looking very building specific when we are addressing whatever the issues may be, in conjunction with what Rich sees out there. So it might not even be an inspection we have, but in Rich's journeys, he might say, hey, I think you better check out the part-timer in this building because this is what I'm seeing.
Okay.
So
Great.
It's a multifaceted.
Okay. Thank you.
Member Lazarowitz?
How many employees do you have at each high school to clean every day? What's the average?
They're all a little different, but anywhere from 11 to 15 is kind of the range.
Every day there's someone there, 11 to 15
Yeah,
cleaning.
approximately.
Now, what,
You also got plant engineers on top of that, correct?
Right. Yes.
and their duties to clean the floors, is it like once an hour, or how's that? Or
do it-
what do they do every hour?
The way that, well,
I mean,
so one-
I'm just trying to say, like,
Yeah.
like, is it 1 hour they clean the floor, next hour they clean the toilets? next hour they clean the drinking fountains? Or how many times does the
So-
restrooms get cleaned a day?
Well, the restrooms are unique. So speaking to the restrooms get cleaned. So there's a policing cycle that happens. That's one of the enhancements that went into the system this year. So we have a couple of people during the day. We have one female and one male in every high school. That basically the point is that at least a couple of times before lunch, a couple of times after lunch, they're policing through and touching up to make sure that there's no student use and abuse, that things are maintained.
Sure,
and
it's a
kept
hard
up.
job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So those get done, but then they get cleaned like final for the morning once in the evening. And everything else, basically, there's a specification sheet that kind of breaks it down, but so like all the trash gets emptied once a day, all the floors get cleaned once a day, but then there's also things that get done once a week. So like some of the dusting things and the spot checking of walls, that should be done once a week.
But the restrooms get cleaned at least 2 or 3 times a day?
Yeah. Clean top to bottom once a day, touched up throughout the day.
Throughout the day?
Yep.
And then drinking fountains get cleaned?
They're supposed to be done once a day. So the comments I heard today is, I got to look at that to make sure we're on track.
John, just for some context, there were problems where we were having good scores for the restrooms at school opening.
Yeah.
But then, you've got 6,000 students in those restrooms
Sure.
throughout the day. So we added additional resources that do those restrooms during the school day.
Okay.
Because they were getting really bad.
And finding, honestly, finding people to do that on a day-to-day basis has been a challenge. And the buildings that we have really good ones at, I'm going to throw Canton out there. Canton, we have had 2 strong people there pretty much since the inception of it. And the bathrooms are much better at Canton than they are at Salem and Plymouth. Plymouth's not as bad as Salem, but, we are constantly trying to figure out what to do to how to change the people up and move people in and out. We just recently did that.
So that's what the plan is, to move a strong person to?
No, to remove the weak person and put a new person in there to try it. I'm not going to pull a strong person from Canton and shift them over to say it. That's not, we want to make sure it's adequate and fair.
Okay.
Okay. Member Brooks?
Yeah, you're saying that in the elementary schools,
Could you use your microphone, please?
at the elementary schools, you use the maintenance engineers to help clean out, or how much do they do throughout the school?
Plant engineer.
Plant engineers.
Plant engineer at the elementary buildings, clean the, offices, media centers. Some of them clean the cafeteria after, they all clean the cafeteria after lunch. And then one or two of them are cleaning a kitchen area because the kids' time uses the media center until they, so it's it's a chain, it's a switch, but that's in one or two of our buildings.
Right. Okay. And GRBS is used for the actual school room, or the rooms in the schools.
Classrooms and
Okay,
bathrooms, yes.
In the classrooms. Okay. Is there any statistics for the plant engineers like these right here, or are they included in this?
They are included. That's why they are included in here. So we don't score our media centers are not on there, but our offices, they are a part of that. That's part of that group. So that GRBS also does go in and check the offices, check the media centers as well.
Okay. Is there any room for like preventative maintenance in the business? That any type of preventative maintenance that you can use to help things stay cleaner longer, either through like signage or special.
Sure, we can look at definitely signage. We can look at it.
Well, and Doug, if you remember, for preventative maintenance, we changed the cleaning products that were used for the floors.
Right, I remember
So the floors, it went to a new product that really retained the clean much better, and they piloted that at Canton.
Right.
And then we saw that be used, and I think it's now been rolled out throughout the whole district.
We have 6 buildings left this
Six
summer.
buildings left, okay. So as they strip the floors, then they put the new products in that keep that clean better. So for
And
that, I think that would be a great
in the
example of preventative
elementaries, honestly, the elementaries that don't have immediate door access to the classrooms, so the kids aren't coming in off the recess pads and everything, those classroom floors are holding up, holding up stronger than other areas. At the park, you've got 6,000 kids coming in 6 times a day, and with the salt walking the path and everything. And you know what we have learned is we're doing this now. We're going to be implementing at Salem at least for next year. Is have those floors run twice a day. So in the middle of the day, during a middle of an hour, they're going to run all the hallway floors because it's a quiet machine. They can run the floors to try and get as much salt up so you don't have that layer upon layer building up.
Yeah, because I was kind of wondering if there was anything like you could get for like the glass or some of the fixtures or anything like that that could keep them shinier longer, you know, just to.
There's really not a
no
product.
preventive
There's no
maintenance?
not on the glass. I mean, no.
Okay. Thank you.
I had a couple of things. I just, if you recall at F&O, I spoke about this a little bit. I'm concerned about the restrooms in the classrooms. You know this because I said it there. But you did mention a school that had a lot of teachers out and staff out. And so I really hope that you can get this so that we're not seeing those high percentages, especially those 2 areas, because I think those are probably the areas where germs are going to be passed around the most. I'm also wondering, you said something by spring you were going to have a second manager. When are you saying by the 21st or?
Unfortunately, it's so hard. I would love to tell you like by next week, Tuesday. The challenge I've had is the recruiting mechanism, the screening mechanism, getting the training program up and running. It's a kind of a very difficult thing to pinpoint. But my goal is ideally, once we hit spring break is a beautiful time to do a lot of hands-on training, especially when it comes to project work and what cleaning is. I mean, the first thing we do with all our management team is you got to know what we're doing here. You're going to go clean. And so my target is by spring break, I have that person hired, screened, onboarded so that we can begin that training process. Spring break is my personal target that I'm looking for.
Okay. And finally, for the WOW Awards, how does one nominate someone for that?
So you can do a couple of things. You can actually submit a work order. There are a few on there that were compliments.
So for board members who don't have a way to do that.
You could send an email.
Okay.
Yep. And you can email me, or you can email just our generic GRBS at GRBS Inc. or P-CCS at GRBS Inc. It all kind of comes to the same spot. So you can send an email. Otherwise, I can, if you're just in conversation with our leadership team, we submit them on behalf of whoever we talk to as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that Linda got a couple because we love her here at the board office.
Awesome. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you.
Next, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say next we have some action items. So the first one is action item 190363. Consider approval of bid award for bid package 17, the Discovery Middle School partial roof replacement, coming from the 2015 bond fund. It's a final reading. Can I have a motion on this, please? If anyone wants to.
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion for action item 190363 for consider approval of the bid award for bid package 17, Discovery Middle School partial roof replacement from the 2015 bond fund. Final reading.
Support.
Second.
I think I heard Member Kehoe first, very faintly.
Fine. Whatever.
It's fine. Okay, so the motion was made by Member Lazarowitz and seconded by Member Kehoe. Ms. Paz, do you want to speak to this?
Sure. Thank you. As discussed at the last board meeting and at the F&L prior, there was a portion of the gym roof, section 3, which had been repaired, but it began leaking. So due to potential damage with the gym floor, we went to the board and sought to design and seek bids to do a partial roof replacement at Discovery Middle School. This project was approved at the November 20th, 2018 Board of Education meeting with an estimated budget of $130,000. On Thursday, February 12th, 7 bids were opened for the work related to the project, and we have Brian Guessman from McCarthy Smith and Bill Weinrack from TMP here to answer any board questions you may have. This resolution is being presented tonight for a final reading from the first reading on February 26th. Oh, for a total of $105,900, well within our budget, to be funded by the 2015 bond fund.
Is there discussion on this? No. Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Next, we have action item 190364, consider approval of a resolution for purchase of 14 buses from the 2015 bond fund. It's also a final reading. Is there a motion?
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion to consider approval of the resolution to purchase 14 buses from the 2015 bond fund. Final reading, action item 190364.
I second it.
Okay. Motion was made by Member Brooks and seconded by Member Lazarowitz. Did you want to speak on this one?
Sure. The Michigan School business officials have a purchasing consortium by which Michigan Public Schools can purchase buses at a pre-arranged bid price. These are 7 IC conventional 77 passenger gasoline-powered general education school buses and 7 rear-engine transit 84 passenger diesel-powered general education school buses from Midwest Transit. They are replacing circa 2004 through 2009 buses, and the goal is to maintain a 10-year or less useful life with an average age of 5 years for the fleet. And so this will accomplish that goal, or toward that goal, for a total of $1,433,763.52, again funded by the 2015 bond fund. Final reading from the prior board meeting on February 26, 2019, that was first read.
Is there discussion on this? I just wanted to mention these are going to have radio and cameras.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And they're replacing some buses that are pretty old, it looks like.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a quick question.
Okay, Mr.
Will the sale of the existing buses that they're replacing be offset against this?
Yes.
It will?
We also have the ability through the Volkswagen grant fund that to apply for some grant dollars too. Any dollars we get, because these are purchased with bond dollars, will have to go back to the bond fund.
Right.
So they'll offset the cost and allow us to do more projects or more purchases later on with those proceeds, but yes.
All right.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Finally, we have action item 190365. Consider approval of a resolution to issue Series 3 building and site bonds in the amount of $6,255,000. First and final reading. Can I have a motion?
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion to consider approval of resolution to issue Series 3 building and site bonds in the amount of $6,255,000. First and final reading, action item 190365.
Seconded.
Motion was made by Member Brooks and seconded by Member Savage. Ms. P.S.?
Thank you. As discussed prior at F&Os and at prior board meetings, our financial advisors, PFM, through Paul Stoddard, has come to us and now brought to us this resolution in accordance with Carrie Shea of Troon, our bond counsel. On May 7, 2013, the qualified electorates of the Plymouth Canton Community Schools authorized $114.4 million in bonds to be used for many purposes, the biggest of which was the creation of Liberty Middle School. In addition to the $65 million worth on Series 1 or A and the $38.72 million worth Series 2 or B, this is now the third and final series. It's $6,255,000 that will be issued to pay for the costs of the bond projects as we discussed in F&O. So this is the third and final series to be issued sold in to be sold in April and close in May prior to the close of the school year in order to do the projects we have currently before us and in the immediate future.
Okay. Is there discussion? No. I think for this one, the timing was really important to
Yes, extremely important to accelerate this timing to this point for two reasons. We want to maintain the millage rate and not have an erosion or an increase in millage. So our bond debt rate to pay our mortgage on the house will stay about 4 mils. On our July 1st, 2019 tax bills, and also there's a lot of new elections coming on board, and so we'll be in the market prior to all the other competing tax exempt bonds. So that's what our goal is.
Okay. All right. Seeing no further discussion, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you.
We are now at the follow-up board questions. Left over from previous meetings, we had the information on the no-cut programs, the athletics, and we did get that in board notes. We also had information on grade point average data on students who participate in activities and clubs, and we are still waiting for that one. Is there anything from tonight?
Just to have the custodial to share the highs and the lows by category, so that we can get some inspection on the averages. Or inspection on the specific things rather than looking at just the averages. We don't necessarily have to bring that forward to the full board, but at least at the F&O meeting, that would be important for us to do.
And I think you mentioned another thing where if they have a different proposal for looking
Yeah,
at
new benchmarks,
new benchmarks.
Yeah, if they want to do new benchmarks, then we'd like them to consider that, because there's no reason that we should stick with the same standards that we've used for the last 30 years.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and I think we need to get some things added, like media centers and cafeterias.
Precisely. Any other areas that we think are important for us to be tracking. So those would be two things.
Okay.
I also heard the career day date at Miller.
Yeah.
That was, yeah. And we can provide that in board notes.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Next on our agenda is adjournment. Do I have a motion?
Madam President, I'd like to adjourn the meeting. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Okay. Motion made by Member Lazarowitz and seconded by Member Sidhu. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we are now adjourned. The motion passes 7-0.
Holy cow, long day.